If you are having a mental health crisis or possibly a borderline mental health crisis, please, depending on your situation, dial 911 or 988 to speak to a licensed medical professional. Disclaimer, I am not a mental health professional or a medical professional. I don't have any of those kinds of degrees. I'm literally a guy in his basement who wrote a novel, who has seen what depression and experienced what depression can do to people. Writing is one of the most gratifying things that you can do for yourself, even for your health. But too much of a good thing can definitely be a bad thing. And writing itself comes with its own unique set of challenges and baggage. So I'd like to give you a few tips that you can have in your toolkit in order to be able to take your craft to a level that is full of creativeness and hopefully not full of any type of mental health considerations that could impact your ability to create and to write. So tip number one, we need to really dispel the notion and the myth that depression and possibly other sort of mental health conditions can somehow enable your art. They cannot. They are sometimes thought to be like the muses personified, like the muse as in like the the mythical beings who sort of whisper creative items and creative ideas into artists' minds, and that somehow inspire them to create, and that somehow that is associated with these types of conditions such as depression. And I'll tell you, the muses are about as real as Santa Claus, okay? They do not exist. And even if they did exist, they're going to come in the worst possible moments, okay? Like you're in rush hour, or you're getting a root canal, or you fell down the stairs. I mean, anything. It's not going to come when you want. Like, right? So, story time. About a year or so ago, I was going through a lot of personal things in my life and fell under a very bad depression. And I had about, I'd say like 10,000 or so words in my manuscript. And by the time that depression hit, I was just physically and mentally unable to write. There was just not a creative bone in my body that could come up with anything of imaginative substance that would even be considered, creative or inspiring or anything. I was just basically, just a walking caveman with a hyperactive amygdala and a very poorly developed prefrontal cortex. Actually, it's a funny story. My brother actually took a DNA test, and apparently I got some Neanderthal blood in me. I don't know about that. So about 2% of that might have been because of my Neanderthal blood, but about 98% of it was due because I was just having poor mental health. So I was unable to complete my project. I was stuck in this rut for months. So bottom line, you can't be in a crisis mode in order to create, in order to be a creative. You just can't. I have lived this, and you cannot convince me otherwise. So you need to at least go from like a period where you feel like absolute garbage to just maybe a little bit shitty every day, something like that. Like you cannot be in a full-blown depression or state of mental health crisis and still write. So we need to really, please help me with this. Please, other artists and creatives, please chime in and articulate this, that we're not providing a positive stigma to people going through a mental health crisis. There's nothing positive about it. We need to get these people help so that then they're able to go about and live their lives and create and write and be a present individual in other people's lives. And I don't know if you believe in that thing called writer's block, but I think if there is something as real as writer's block out there, it takes the form of a mental health issue or crisis where you can't create that day because of X, Y, and Z going on in your life. Whether it's, kind of temporal, it's just kind of, temporary, or, there's a more kind of long-standing issue at hand. Who knows? But I think a lot of that could play into writer's block. So tip number one was more of a life lesson than a tip, but basically you need to be in the right headspace in order to create. You cannot let your issues sit. Okay, so tip number two, talk to someone, okay? I know as writers especially, writing is more or less a kind of introverted activity. You're by yourself. Introvert doesn't necessarily mean though that you are like unable to talk to people. It doesn't mean that at all. In fact, all it means is that you need to recharge your batteries by being by yourself for a period of time. All right. Whereas an extrovert sort of derives that boost in their kind of energy levels by interacting with other people. Okay. You can go out there. You can talk to someone about your issues. And I understand that a lot of the times, writers are forced out to talk to people. It's talking about things that, it might be writing centric, but it might be talking to, agents or editors or critique partners or beta readers or people who are going to poke holes in your ideas and poke holes in your, creative endeavors. And that doesn't feel very good for the most part, right? So in this, when you talk to someone, play it safe and talk to someone who can help your state of mind, okay? So don't just your writing community, like your editors, your agents, your critique partners, your beta readers, they're going to give you criticism. That's what they're there for. Have other people or professionals who you can sort of unload on. And I get, sometimes you feel like you might be a burden to your loved ones. Well, I guarantee you that your loved ones want to make sure that you are talking to someone about your problems, if not then a professional. Again, 988 is a resource out there that you can tap into in order to speak to someone. Okay, tip number 3, you are not your writing. Okay, bonus tip, you are not even your thoughts. Okay, I know this is getting pretty wild here, but okay, authors and artists, they ascribe so much of their self-worth to their work. And as rightfully proud as they are about their work, you are not even half of your work. You're not even 25% of your work. Actually, if you want to get down to the numbers, you are 60% water. So don't write off everything else that makes you you. Writing should be fun for you. It should be an activity where you can express yourself. And it definitely has the capacity to make those maybe racing thoughts in your head maybe just a little bit racy. But if you're finding that you're ascribing too much importance to the activity, you might want to dial it back. Okay, tip number 4, manage your expectations. Okay, a lot of times we're really hard on ourselves. Maybe you want to self-publish, and there's a lot of barriers to that. Maybe you're trying to go the traditional route, and there's a ton of barriers with that as well. Maybe all you want to do is write like 300 words tonight. Maybe that's your goal. Firstly, you don't have to write every night, okay? Give yourself some grace, get offline, decompress. And if you go into a writing session and you want to write like 500 words and you only write 50, that's great. pat yourself on the back. You have more words on the page now than when you entered into it. But getting back to the point, manage your expectations, okay? I mean, writing in particular is just full of rejection, okay? It's either going to come on the front end when you're trying to get an agent or an editor, or it's going to come on the back end when you're trying to get a readership. Take all those rejections with a grain of salt, okay? It is probably most likely not a reflection of your writing, and definitely not a reflection as you of a person. You know, maybe that agent already has a client that has like the exact same book. You know, maybe the editor you pitch to is already up to their eyeballs in unsolicited manuscript. Maybe that person who gave you a really bad review on Amazon is just a flaming ass. You can't control what other people think about your work, and you shouldn't have to. Their opinions are their opinions. Tip number 5, and this is going to sound cheesy, but it is 100% true. You need to be kind to yourself. I remember a friend of mine asked me what I would tell myself, you know, last year when I was going through my period of you know, a mental health issue. And I told her, oh yeah, I'd tell that guy to just, you know, just pull it together, you know. And she said, you absolutely would not do that. Like, because if you saw somebody else going through something like that, would you go up to them and just say, pull it together? No, you'd probably walk up to them, you'd probably pat them on the back, and you'd probably say, hey, how you doing? You know, what can I do to help? And we're so ready to do that to others, and it's very hard often to do that to ourselves. So that's the most important tip right there, is be kind to yourself. Give yourself some grace. Please like this video. It's really going to help it move throughout the YouTube algorithm and potentially help somebody else that needs to hear this message. And